it's Lauren here from Waking with Wellness. I hope you're all really well. I felt today like coming on and recording a video. As most of you probably know, I have been in Australia now, having moved here since January, and have been really settling into life here, really enjoying the summer and now the changing in seasons, even though it's still nice and sunny and warm. And I wanted to record a video today because I felt ever since arriving here, especially after having finished my online course that I was running, so I was running the chakra course for the first month really of being in Sydney, which was such an amazing experience, and so grateful for the women that were on that course. And I kind of came to Australia with this sense of drive and determination. And whenever life presents us with new beginnings, there are so many possibilities. And I kind of had in my head this agenda that I would just take my life as it was in the UK and continue growing in the same way as I had been back there. And I really felt a lot of that inspiration and a lot of the wanting to take action and the ideas and the goals and all of this stuff was quite present at the beginning. And then for the past probably couple of months, I have felt a really big internal shift. And I wanted to speak to about this today because I think it's something that's really important. And what I've noticed in myself is that there is a part of me always that really wants to move forwards, to take action, to achieve, to be growing, to want to see measurable results in my life. And what I have felt really, really strongly recently is this shifting, is this deep desire to take a big step back, to take a step back from producing, from being so out there, especially with my work and my business, because for me, the two of these things have always been really inseparable, because the work that I do is a reflection of my own journey, of my own passions, and I have probably for the past few years been in this stage of real activation, of setting up my business, I think in 2013, and really since then being on a journey of growth and learning and integrating my teachings and then offering them out into the world. And the past year, a lot of my own practice and my own teaching, actually the past maybe year and a half, have been about exploring more of the feminine way of being. And there's definitely a big shift in our experience of the feminine, what it means to be a woman, but not even just for women, what it means to hold the feminine and the masculine. And so the journey that I'm on right now is a journey of coming inwards. And I wanted to share something about where I'm at. And I've also noticed that the way that I might have worked before, of like, right, I'm going to set this date and I'm going to do this talk, or it's not really working for me. And when I think about in my business, the times when I've written emails or I've written blogs about something that is a truth that's just kind of come through, is that when I honour that spontaneity and allow whatever that message is to rise up and then to share it, those are the times when the messages are the most powerful, and when I get emails from people saying, that was exactly the message that I needed to hear. So I wanted to share something about this topic today for a while, but I've also been really aware that I don't want to push, I don't want that controlling energy to be dictating how I'm going to share it and when. And so today I spent the morning down the beach and swimming in the beach pool, which is something that I've been doing so much of, and it is honestly one of the most amazing things about being here is being in water, because me and my partner are both huge water babies. And one of the things I always find when I spend a lot of time in the water, especially in the salt water, in the sea, the ocean, is that it really awakens a sense of softening and a sense of reminding me of the feminine qualities. And so with that, today I have felt the inspiration starting to come through, and I wanted to talk, and I feel like I want to share something, and I've got some ideas about what I want to share, but it's not really concrete. I really just want to talk and have a dialogue with you about some of the things that have been coming up on my path, on my life journey, on my spiritual quest, and I really trust that many of the things I'm going to talk about today are going to be relevant for you as well. So what I want to talk about is the integration of the masculine and the feminine. Now, the words masculine and feminine are very loaded words because we immediately think of man, woman, male, female. And what we know is that both men and women hold masculine and feminine, and that true empowerment comes when we bring both of these energies together within us, so that I'm not just trying to have all of this feminine energy and no masculine energy, but I'm trying to balance both energies so that we show up in our lives more whole within ourselves. So other ways of wording this that kind of go away from gender, we can think about masculine energy as being a solar energy, like the energy of the sun. We can also think of masculine energy as like this warrior. So the masculine energy has a strength and has this conviction, and it wants to take action, and it's very fiery. So we can also think about this energy as being like the energy of summer, the energy of being out there, of being seen, of having this high energy and this productivity. So this is the masculine energy. And then the feminine energy is more associated with the moon, with the darkness, with the goddess energy. So the feminine energy is a softer energy. But what I want to talk today is about the strength that we can also find within this softer energy. And so if we think about comparing the masculine and the feminine, one of the big things about the masculine energy is that the masculine energy is a very linear energy. So the masculine is really what our culture tends to value. Now, as we go through this talk, you'll probably find some of these qualities will relate to you, both the masculine and the feminine will be relevant for you, of course. But it's likely that one side will be more resonant with you than the other. And I would say more often than not is that we tend to value the masculine way, the masculine energy, because that's really what our culture is based on. It didn't used to be. If we look back to the pagan times and the goddess traditions, it was a completely different story. And actually much of my own learning about this has come through reading books like The Mists of Avalon and understanding these different teachings and the different traditions, and even going back to, where Easter and Christmas and all of these traditions actually came from. They came from the cycles of the land, and understanding this is such a profound thing to become aware of. So our culture focuses on the linear, on this productive energy. And often what that means is that we live our lives going through this almost like a conveyor belt it can feel like. And we think about when our children are at school, and when we ourselves were at school, it was like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? How am I going to get there? What's my plan? What's my trajectory? And we're going to talk about how this is really, really helpful, and how it can also be a shadow, how it can turn against us. So the good thing about the masculine energy then is that it gives us this sense of focus. It gives us this sense of inspiration and planning and setting ourselves goals and finding that energy within us to take the consistent action that we ultimately need to create change in our lives. So the masculine energy really has its place, and it can be very, very fulfilling when we achieve our goals and when we, show up, keep showing up and keep taking action. And if that's all we value, then ultimately we will fall. We will fall off that, because that energy relies on a consistency. It relies on everything being stable. It's like the masculine energy is consistent. And what we know is that life isn't like this, right? Life is not always controllable. And when we live our lives focusing on achievement, and we see it so often in people who, I have lots of friends and people I know, people I've worked with who have maybe worked in corporate world for a long time and have been on this like getting here, ticking this off, or even just, what we're told it is to live a successful life, that we get the job, we get the marriage, we have the children, we have the house, we have this, and we're achieving all of these things. And then more and more people are coming to this phase of being like, okay, from the outside my life looks really good, but on the inside actually I'm really unhappy. On the inside I just feel like I've lost my sense of self, I've lost my inspiration, I've lost my joy and my love and my lightness. And so this is the shadow of the masculine, where we become so focused on needing to be productive, of needing to achieve, that it can become an overly sterile environment where we really lose that sense of the heart, that sense of feelings, the sense of softening and fun and play and pleasure and all of the things that make our lives wholesome and rich. And so the feminine way, rather than being this linear way, the feminine recognizes the cycles. Now, as women, and again, this is relevant for women and men, but for women in particular, all we have to do is to look within, right? Look within our bodies. And what we know as women is that our bodies are always in cycles. And our bodies are in cycles just like the cycle of the moon around the sun. And that at every part of the cycle there is a different energy. And this is one of the teachings that has made the biggest change to my life, is recognizing and really honoring those parts of the cycle. So if we think about, if we are in the phase of our life where we're still menstruating, then we can look at the different parts of the cycle for this. So we know that when we are in the pre-ovulation phase, it's like the spring energy, right? Even if we're not in those years, we can think about the moon, and this would be the time of the waxing moon. So when we've gone from that dark moon to the light is returning, that spring energy. And for many of you in the UK, you're probably hopefully starting to feel this now, because once that snow goes away, that lightness is returning. And as a culture, we tend to value this energy of the spring and new beginnings and inspiration. And then as we move to ovulation, Around this time, we're often most sociable. We want to be most out there. We enjoy putting ourselves out there and having fun and having more energy. And so for myself, I really notice in this time that I want to be out running, or I want to be out socializing, or I just have more energy for life. And even within myself, I notice that I really love this time of my cycle because I just feel better. And I love the spring and the summer energy of the time of year. And what happens is that's kind of more of that like masculine energy of we're out there, we're being productive, we've got high energy. But that is not consistent. If we didn't have the seasons of the year, then life can't continue, right? We need the autumn, the time of fall, where everything starts to quieten down and we have this shedding. And that's the stage of pre-menstruation, right? The luteal phase. And that's normally a time where our energy starts to wane. It's the time of the waning moon. So the summer energy, ovulation, is that full moon, that fiery, bright, vivacious energy. And then it starts to wane. And then we come towards winter. And winter is the time of the darkness. And as women, when we're on our moon cycle, our menstrual cycle, when we're in that menstrual phase, most of the time, for most of us, we don't feel like being out there, being the life and soul of the party, being, like, I know for myself that I used to actually be confused because I thought that because I have naturally quite a high energy, that there was something wrong with me for like half of the month. That why do I feel tired? Why do I feel this? And it's like a pathologizing. And this is what we do as a culture. We only have to look to adverts about, what it's like when you're on your period, and like, don't let that get you in the way from doing all the things you normally do, going to the gym and all of this. And it's like, hang on a minute. We don't have to be doing that all the time. And one of the best things that I now do as part of my cycle is to really honour that phase and know when it's coming, and try as much as possible to be in sync with that, so that when it is the dark time of the month, when I'm in that phase, and even if you're not in your moon years, then just looking at the moon, your body will be more aligned with the energy of the moon, so that as we arrive at the new moon, the dark moon, it's that time of coming inwards. And it's a bit like the months of winter. So in winter, the trees have no leaves on them. Everything is dark and quiet. And from the outside, it doesn't really look like much is happening. But what we know is that this time is so precious and it's so necessary, because underneath the soil, there is all of this integration, and there's all of the assimilation and the absorption ready, so that we can recuperate, so that those seeds underground can recuperate, so that as spring comes back, they have that energy and that potency and the nourishment that they need to blossom again. And so for us, it's so important for us in our lives, whether we're men or women, and if you're a woman in your menstruating years, then the best time to do this is when you're on your period. If you're not, then it's the time of the new moon, is to really honour, how can I recognise my rhythms? How can I give myself space every month to quieten down, to not put that pressure on myself to be achieving, to be, out there so much, and to really make space for nourishment and for rest. And that's the feminine gift. The feminine recognises that in order to have that quality, that energy, that we need to balance that with rest and deep self-nourishment. And so some of my best practices, what I tend to do around this time of the month, is just to lay and listen to music and to breathe and to do yoga nidra, or to do some really soft movement or dance, things that just feel really, really nourishing. And I spend a lot of time with my eye pillow on, just giving myself time to rest. And so this is one of the real gifts that come when we really, really honour this self-care. And this is where self-care for me, because I think sometimes self-care, self-love, it's a difficult thing to grasp. But for me, it's about honouring the cycles and honouring that there will be times when the best thing that I can do is just to turn inwards and to rest and to nourish myself. So this is a gift of the feminine. And then the feminine also has shadows. So if we live our lives in the feminine is like this wild force. So in yoga, the feminine energy is the Shakti, it's the creative energy, right? So this energy in women is from the pelvis, it's our reproductive, it's this second chakra energy. And the same for men, it's where our creativity, our potential to create life is born in the second chakra. And so this is the energy of wanting to create and to create life. I've kind of lost my thought pattern there for a moment. Yeah, so the Shakti energy it needs this creativity. And this is the feminine, where when we give ourselves space to not bother so much about what it looks like or being productive, is when we just allow ourselves to express ourselves, we have this creative energy and we have this inspiration and we have this zest for life that comes through. But if we don't have any form, if we don't have any structure for this, then the feminine has no way of manifesting into the world. So as an example, we might have loads and loads of ideas, but we don't ever manage to manifest it as anything into reality. So the masculine energy in yoga is the Shiva energy, the Shiva consciousness. And we can think about the masculine as being this stable, grounding force. We can think about the energy of the riverbed. So if we think about Shakti as being the feminine and it connected very closely with the element of water, it's this creative energy. And if we don't have the riverbed of the Shiva energy, if we don't have that masculine stability and structure in place, then the river just has it's just going to disperse. It's not going to be helpful. And so this is where we need both. We need space for that creative energy to come through, but we need the riverbeds there. We need to bring structure and action and stability into our lives. So that's a really good analogy of how both of these qualities are so important. So another way we can think about the masculine and the energy is through our yoga practice. So likely many of you watching this video are practicing yoga or maybe interested in yoga, interested in bringing in more spirituality, mind-body practices, because that's the essence of my business and what I often speak about. And we see this very much in the tradition of yoga, because the tradition of yoga, if we think about images of the yoga gurus, they're always of men, right? Always of men. And many of the practices in yoga don't really accommodate for the female body. And they don't really accommodate for the feminine energy. And there are different traditions that have more of that than others. So, for example, when I started yoga, I kind of came into yoga through Ashtanga yoga. And I love Ashtanga yoga. It's really, I have a great honor for it because it brought me to yoga. And anyone that's practiced yoga, Ashtanga particularly, knows that it's a very structured practice, that you do pretty much the same, or exactly the same sequence of movements. And it's very steady. and it's very focused. It's quite focused on achievement from the primary series to the secondary series. It's quite focused on like getting deeper, kind of pushing yourself more and more into the posture. And I practiced that type of yoga for quite some time. And while I still have a lot of love for that type of yoga, what I realised for myself was that when I was practicing that way, I would even notice, like in the places where I'd go for teachings, that there was this sense of, you'd get encouragement and praise if you got into the deepest pose. If if your head was right down towards your legs, that would be like a good place to be, and you'd want to get there. And there was that sense of striving. There was that sense of, oh, I just want to get there. I just want to get deeper. I just want to be able to get my leg in this position. I just want to be able to get onto this. And what I started to see in myself was that energy had really been dictating my whole life for so many years. And here in my yoga practice, it was like the perfect metaphor for what was happening. For this feeling of like giving my own power away to needing external praise from a teacher, and for judging my ability in my yoga practice based on how far I was going, or how far I was achieving, or how much I was practicing. And recognizing that this was not, while this had served me in my life, while it had meant this energy that I had, it had meant I'd achieved a lot. I had loads of qualifications, and I saw that in my life, this was just a metaphor for what was happening, that I was just relying on praise from other people. That rather than feeling into my own truth, I was focused on how do I need to be in this world to make other people approve of me? How can I make them like me more? How can I get my sense of self-confidence through my achievements? And what happens, because so many of us are in this, because it's what our culture teaches us, and that when we put all of our sense of worth on the external world, whether that's a person, whether that's a guru, ultimately it's going to affect our confidence. It's going to mean that, when we don't get the feedback that we want, or when our body's not doing what we want it to be doing, then we feel like a failure, or we feel like we're not good enough because we haven't lived up to this really high external pressure. Okay, so again, that form of yoga has its benefits. It has that structure. It teaches us discipline. But if we just focus on that, then it's not whole. It's not complete. It's not that true integration of the masculine and the feminine. So comparing that to a yoga practice that would be more feminine. Now, in the last year, I was introduced to the practice of Koya by my beautiful friend Sonia Locker. And Koya is a practice that embodies yoga, and it embodies it in a deeply feminine way. And what I know in my own life is that when I let go of control, the things that I need just show up for me. When I'm open, when I set my intention on what I want, and one of my intentions was, like 2 or 3 years ago, was about the feminine, was about being in connection with women more and expressing that side of myself, that all of these things then start to show up. And so Koya is a practice that embodies movement, that embodies dance, and the ethos of Koya is that it's not about what it looks like, it's about how it feels, right? It's not about comparing myself to the person practicing next to me and thinking, do I look silly doing this? Am I doing it right? The way that you know you're doing it right is when it feels good. And more than that, it's when it feels true. It's like that feeling of when you put a song on and your body just wants to dance, and it knows how it wants to move. And the feminine is when you just allow it to move in that way. And this is such a gift of Koya, because it's like half this deeply spiritual practice and half like dancing around your kitchen like a, free in creative expression of life. And I love it for that, and I have learned so much from that practice of really honouring it's not about what it looks like, it's about how it feels. And so in our yoga practice, what this looks like, because so many people that I teach, I've realised over the years, really struggle with a home practice. And when I think about this, I think that it's less about, and feedback to me if you're somebody that is in this position, but it's not necessarily that you don't know what to do. Chances are you probably know, you remember some yoga moves. If you've been even to a couple of yoga classes, you might remember the warrior, or you might remember the tree, or you might remember the triangle pose. But it's about this feeling of, am I doing it right? That I kind of need someone else to show me what to do. That I can't trust myself enough to know what to do. That I need that guidance, right? And that guidance can be super helpful. Like, I love going to yoga classes. I love learning and developing. But when I'm always just doing that, it takes away from my truth. And my yoga practice, generally, I roll my mat out and I have no preconceived idea about what I'm going to do. It's about letting go of that and just thinking, how's my body showing up today? How am I feeling energy-wise, emotional? What do I need? How does my body want to move? And sometimes that might just be rolling around on my mat. Sometimes it might be literally getting 2 cushions, putting them under my legs, putting an eye pillow on and breathing and playing a beautiful piece of music. Other days it might be that I want to do a really strong practice and my body wants that energy and it wants to do lots of planks and lots of sun salutations. And so the gift of yoga then is that we bring what we know, but we embody it in a way that we really listen to our body. We really honour that feminine part, which is the part that is always showing up differently, is always in flux. And therefore, if we have a practice, like this is my practice, and we try and do that same practice every single day, then it's not always that helpful, because some days your body doesn't need that. There are times, especially for women, where that's not what you need, and there are other times when that's exactly what you need. And so really inviting you to try and let go of that need to, whatever that voice is, whatever it looks like for you that's that kind of controlling, am I doing it right? I need to do more. Is to really soften and listen into your body and to practice being with your breath and being with whatever is arising and really being okay with that. Being okay if today you're absolutely exhausted and you just want to, lie down. That is as much of a yoga practice as is doing 20 sun salutations. So that's kind of how it might show up in yoga and in different forms. So it might not be yoga, it might be like, I know for me, as I said, like running is something that I do a lot in part of my cycle. And then other times I'm more like just really gentle swimming or doing, relaxation. Okay, so we've spoken about this balance, the masculine, the feminine. And one of the other things that I want to just touch upon is this sense of balance, this word balance. And what I think is true is that balance doesn't exist, that there is no perfect balance, that we're never going to get to the stage where we are like, okay, I've got it, I'm perfectly aligned, I'm perfectly setting my goals and taking action, and I'm really integrating all of this. Like, that's what we aim to get to, somewhere that brings both together. But all of us have our own natural tendency. And so my definition of what that balance looks like in my own life is something that I'm still working on. And probably for you, you'll have your own sense of where you might need to bring more of the other energy in. And just planting that seed of curiosity of like, what would that look like, or what would that feel like if I had a little bit more of that balance? So that's going to be different for everybody. So if we think about somebody who has maybe a woman, right? Because again, the women might have more masculine energy. So if we think about a woman who's working in a corporate job and she is really focused, maybe she's learned from a young age that she has to be independent, that she doesn't want anyone else to take care of her, that she is really on it with her finances, with her career. She's really driven to succeed. But yet, in her intimate relationship, she really struggles. She feels like maybe her partner comments that she is always too controlling, or doesn't really soften, doesn't allow for that deeper intimacy. That for that woman, the deepest practice would be about actually letting go of some of that need for control and thinking, how can I soften? How can I actually allow myself to be more supported? How can I bring in more time for play, for fun, for my sensuality, for enjoying my body, for rest, and for all of these things that make life rich and joyful, rather than just being on this, very masculine trajectory. And then we might have somebody else. So I also know people who have so much of this strong feminine energy. They're amazing mothers and they have so much creativity, and maybe they're producing art, or they are involved in dance, or just have so much of that creative, feminine, beautiful, beautiful women, but really struggle with money, with setting boundaries, with just the general stuff in life that we have to manage. And maybe they find themselves in a lot of debt. Maybe they, life isn't really, they have all this creative idea, but they don't have that riverbed, they don't have that masculine focus to actually deal with some of that stuff. So for that person, their balance, their empowerment might come from making a spreadsheet and focusing on their finances and focusing on, how can I start to own this part of my life? Because what happens is we can project the qualities that we haven't embodied within ourselves, we can project out onto others. So for women, this is sometimes known as the Cinderella syndrome, where we have been taught traditionally that, if we just think about watching Cinderella, it's like, as a woman waiting to be rescued by a man who is going to come and figure out and take care of the money, take care of all that stuff. And if we abide by that story, and there are many people who have, and then maybe they've reached a point in their life where maybe their partner has died, or something's happened, or they've left a relationship, and now it's like, whoa, how, I've never dealt with this stuff before. And that empowerment is then, how can I own that within myself? Because otherwise we just project it onto a man. A man has to figure all this out. And then that can cause difficulties in our relationship, because we have this really high expectation on them, because it's actually something that we haven't owned within ourselves. And it can, of course, go the other way. So I just wanted to speak to this idea of the balance, and really that balance is different for everybody. And the practices that therefore we need are different to everybody, because we are all unique. And there are different things that we can do to balance both of these. And really the word yoga is to yoke, is to bring together, is this union. And it's in psychology, in psychotherapy, Carl Jung would speak about the tension of the opposites, that life is this play of this push and pull, whether it's in yoga, balancing our really active practice with shavasana of just resting, or whether it's this balance of this masculine and feminine, this doing and this being, that there is this sacred dance, and that both of these energies are what create life. And therefore, I think that what I'm feeling in myself is that this is the message that wants to come through me at the moment, and this is where I'm at in my own life. And so for me right now, what this looks like is resisting the urge to push forwards with this controlling nature. That there's this part of me that wants to, launch my next course or start running my courses out here, like to be in that real zone of creation, activation. But part of it feels like I'm trying to swim against the tide. And most of the time before, when I've been in that creative zone, it's felt really natural. It's felt like, the inspiration's been there. And if I try to hold back, it's like resistance there because it just wants to come through. And so where I'm at right now is honoring the flow, is honoring and choosing the path of the least resistance. And recognizing that right now, it might not look like much is happening. It might, I'm not necessarily writing blogs all the time, and I'm not being out there as much, but I'm really in the process of myself trusting that I'm just giving myself space at the moment to integrate more. Because personally, since starting my business, I've learned so much and I've grown so much, and my life has really, really changed. And that's the part of the feminine that says, okay, this is how it has been, but let's just take a step back for a moment and think about, how is this all feeling within? What's shifted? What are my values right now? And let's just take some time just to come inwards before that expansion happens again. So trusting that the time is right, trusting that you don't have to control everything. And so I'm in this deep kind of conversation with myself at the moment of like going through that inner spiral again and trusting that it's going to come out, trusting that, maybe next month I'll be like, woohoo, I've got all these new things that I want to share with you. But maybe it will be 3 months, or maybe it will change. I don't know yet, but I am really honouring and trusting that I'm in the right place, and just trying to work on that more. I've always tried to be authentic and to be vulnerable and to kind of share what's going on, but to really slow down, give myself space. So this is what I wanted to share with you today, and anything that's resonated, please email back or write a comment or whatever you feel like you want to share, because one of my favorite things is like being in conversation and trusting that the right people watch the right things, and just like I'm drawn to, reading that book or watching this talk, that some of you will also be thinking, yeah, this is really resonating with me too. And so please feel free to share your version, your story, your truth. And just as we finish today, let's just take a few moments. So wherever you are, maybe you want to just lie down on your back, maybe you're sat, maybe you're walking, and obviously don't close your eyes, but just take a moment. Maybe it feels good to close your eyes if you are in a space that you can. And just feel into your breath. Notice anywhere in your body that you're holding. Maybe there's a gripping in your face, in your jaw, a holding around your belly. And just consciously with your breath start to invite in a little more spaciousness. And see with your breath in if you can breathe right down into your pelvis. So you really allow your tummy and all of the space around the tummy and the lower back to expand. How often are we taught to hold this part in? Just feel that sense of space, a feeling of softening. Maybe you breathe in through your nose, and maybe you just breathe out through your mouth, and just a feeling of just letting go of any pressures, of any of this tightness, of this tightened, hardened energy. And maybe you stay here, maybe you just stay and you breathe for the next 5-10 minutes. Maybe you journal, maybe you don't do anything and you just let it integrate. But whatever your next actions are for your day, your evening, your morning, then wishing you lots of love and lightness and just curiosity. That's a word that's a really important word, is how can we be more curious about our lives and about bringing in this balance. So thank you for listening to me today, and I hope to hear from you and speak to you whenever I next feel called to. So take care, blessings, namaste.